Still have a few more people coming in. All right, it is 5:01, so let's bring our meeting to order. Hey, thank you all for being here and welcome. Rob Crete, you're elected president here at HCTA. We're also joined by Regina Gambrell, our vice president, and we have Britt Wegman, our executive director. Val Chuchman, our secretary treasurer, is sick tonight, and so we're hoping that she's feeling better and getting some rest right now, but we will carry us through with our information meeting tonight. And again, thank you for being here, and let's take a look at what we got going on. We know that, let's see, can we move this next slide? There we go. Hey, we know that we've been saddled with two terrible storms here in Florida. Quite frankly, Milton was the worst one I've endured in my 35 years. And I'm hoping that all of you are doing well. And I know that many of you got at us about some property damage and things of that nature. We're working on a couple things for those that have contacted me. And thank you again for your patience with not being able to have a rep council in October. So we're bringing an information meeting about what we know going on right now to help you guys. And then we'll get right back to our rep councils here in November. So the next two rep councils will be November 14th, right here at HCTA from 6 to 8. And then our December rep council will be December 12th from 6 to 8 right here at our building. So remember, rep councils, reps and alt reps get to vote on our issues. And then our members are always welcome to come on down. We know that we missed the budget meeting that we had planned for October. So we're just going to move that to November as well. But we'll get you all those details in the newsletter that comes out each and every Monday to get you the information that you need. So let's slide, next slide. And then of course, there's other ways to be engaged in what we're doing. We have some great committees. We have our fire committee for our Florida Young Remarkable Educators. Regina runs our ESP committee, so we have that opportunity for you. We have our grassroots education action team, and they've been doing a great job getting our school boards elected. And then, of course, we have our Human Civil Rights Ethnic Minority Affairs Committee. So we have some QR codes right there for you if you want to join one of these committees. Or you can just email us at hcta@hcps.net. Don't forget that we always have that email available to send questions or issues that you're having. And it's always another avenue if you don't have time to give a call real quick to our building. So thank you all again for being here tonight. Let's go to our next slide. And we'll probably start digging into that which you guys want to know about really is what's going on with the hurricane and all that. And I just want to say, and I'm going to pass it over to Britt in a minute about what we've been working on. But, it's really hard when these storms come through because we're kind of handcuffed when we have to close the schools. And one of the first things that we do is we call the district and talk about you guys making sure you get paid on time. So through the storm, the district sent their payroll people into the building so that way everybody was getting paid on time. So that's our first concern. And then as soon as they tell us that, all right, everybody's going to get paid on time, then we say, all right, what do you know? What are you thinking? What's going to happen with the hurricane makeup days? And so we try to always follow the lead of what our members want. And, we've done that yet again, looking at the survey, and we got lots of results on that survey. So with that, I just want to, I'm glad that you guys are safe and that you're here. And I know that this is making the best of an awful situation. And that is the makeup time for hurricanes. We understand. And like we were even talking to staff today, when you guys are home for a hurricane, it's not like you're off of work. It's the most stressful time that you're experiencing. It's extra work at home. It feels awkward. It feels terrible. It's scary. And again, like it was the scariest storm that I've endured in 35 years down here was Milton. And but I'm glad and fortunate that, the damage is only done to trees and fences at my house. And it's a real mess out there, including making up these hurricane minutes. With that, I'm going to pass it over to our executive director, who's going to kind of talk about the process that we undergo and where we're at with that. So with that, Britt.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna walk us through the survey results. So just as kind of a brief summary before I click over to actually show you some of the graphs and charts and where that is, where you can do a deep dive into it as you wish. We had over 5,200 responses with over 1,900 written comments. The kind of big overarching thing when we did this survey was to look at kind of a preference of kind of an order of operations. So just as a brief summary, 84% of respondents first said use early release. 9% said add no more than 30 minutes to every school or the workday. That was kind of something we looked at. We weren't trying to add 30 minutes, but was that something that would be feasible? And 3% responded with possibly changing some of the calendared holidays, such as Thanksgiving or Veterans Day. Those are always the days that are thrown around into regular school days. And then 4% responded by saying adding days at the end of the school year. So if you want to look at this data and how it breaks down and look at a summary of the written comments, you can go to our website and go down to the bottom and click on documents. So I'm going to show you how this looks. Let me share my screen here. All right. Hopefully you're seeing our website. When you go to our website, when you scroll down to the bottom and click on documents, we've created kind of a hurricane guidance section where you can see the memos from the DOE. We got questions about that. We did create a hurricane FAQ with kind of some, things that we understand about statutes, an analysis of, the district calendar and that sort of thing as we understood it. But we put together our hurricane makeup day survey results here. So here you go, 5,271 responses. We ran this from October 18th to last night, maybe early this morning, we ended it. So here's the breakdown of the data, as first kind of looking at these choices as the first choice, again, 84% said use the early release. First choice, add time. First choice, 3% change some of the calendared holidays, and 4% saying their first choice would be add days to the end of the school year. The second page here does kind of a deeper dive breakdown into how many folks selected option 1 as their first, second, third, or fourth choice. How they selected, adding time to the school or the workday as their first, second, or third, fourth choice. The third option of changing some of the calendared holidays, which would be your first, second, or third choice. And then same with adding days to the end of the school year. Then this is kind of an expanded analysis of all of the written documentation or the written comments. I'm not going to go through and read it, but the 1,900 plus written responses, again, kind of also reflected this sentiment. That's why we allowed for that section so we could analyze it. Again, utilizing early release days is the first option, extending the school day or the work day, maintaining holiday breaks, avoiding any kind of a June extension. There were also comments about impacts on teachers, focusing on minimal disruptions to kind of things that have already been scheduled and calendared. Those logistical concerns, especially from a perspective of when school starts and ends and that sort of thing. Burnout, again, there was great data in there about not only employee, but student burnout in particular. And then of course, involvement of the Department of Education. So there's a lot of great data here if you want to, on your own time, look at that. I'm going to go back to our presentation. All right, so using that data, HCTA reported and provided all of these summary results directly to the superintendent and his cabinet. We met with the district leaders late yesterday to review these results and advocate for employee desires and discuss the district's tentative plan that was released today. What we really tried to push hard on in the advocacy piece was that we did not want to add any unpaid days, right, to the employee's calendar or the workday. We knew that that was a very important aspect. We did not want to use any of these already scheduled holidays, such as the fall or the winter break or Veterans Day. And again, focusing on what we saw clearly in the data as utilizing early release days first, then possibly adding some small amounts of time to the schedule where possible to protect as much planning time and those teacher work days as possible. So the important protections to understand that are maintained that I don't believe were communicated in the superintendent's email of kind of the schedule of the plan for those makeup days is that there will be no extra work days added to the work year or your schedules. The fall, the winter break, the Veterans Day all remain protected. There will be no mandatory Monday meetings held for the second semester. We already still have what we agreed to the first time around for the remainder of this semester. 4 faculty meetings in the second semester must be waived. Those are going to be chosen by the administrator, but we said that they needed to be communicated ahead of time. So it can't be, oh, you show up on your Tuesday and, oh, I canceled the faculty meeting. And the last aspect of this is that all employees will receive an additional paid day of work at a cost of $6 million to the district. So the example here is if you're a 198-day employee, you will now be paid 199 days. So that's kind of a summary of all of what we got, what we advocated for, and these are the things that HCTA worked to protect within that plan. So there's a difficult balance when we go in to try to negotiate these things. The district has an obligation to ensure that students have that minimum requirement of instructional time. And we know that when we look at a deep dive of the minutes, there's kind of that split between what's going on with elementary and secondary. So an overarching question I know that we get is, you know, why this, it seems like there may be more time that we're making up that is above that minimum requirement. But the reality is we lost over 3,000 minutes of instructional time. And the real rub, where the real difficult part comes in, is dealing with secondary. Secondary has a requirement for their credit hours to be at 135 hours minimum. HCTA advocated and asked, very pointed to the superintendent, if there was a possibility of where we could run on a separate operational calendar, meaning elementary could have early release while secondary didn't. And very point blank, the superintendent refused that. He felt very strongly about the instructional time that was lost and making that up. So the reality is that in comparison to the original calendar, it is less minutes than originally scheduled. But he felt very strongly and was unwilling to have any kind of separate operations for elementary versus secondary. So that was the rub there with that. And that was why we were like, you know, advocated for these other important aspects. So that's where we are at with this. I don't know if Rob or Regina want to add anything that maybe I overlooked.
No, I would just say that we've received hundreds of emails. We hear you, and we get emails on all sides of this argument. I'll open one email that says you must use early release days, and if you don't, then you know, often I get threats like I'll quit HCTA. That's a common threat. Or then the next one is, well, if you give up early release, then I might leave. Or, you know, I get a lot of emails about the most I think we got was adding more minutes to already the days that we have. And people spoke about what their obligations were beyond the workday, whether it was their second job or picking up their children from childcare or different appointments that they may have. So again, the survey is what is driving the decision that we made, and what we were able to get out of the district was an additional day of pay. And it is based on the laws that we have coming from Tallahassee. And you know, we put out an info page yesterday, Monday, maybe with the newsletter. I'm not sure what day it is. And then we in there, it talks about how and what bell ringers that a district has to hit before the DOE will actually waive them. And ultimately, it says in there, if you haven't already looked, that every single teacher workday has to already have been exhausted. And every non-federal holiday would have to have been exhausted before they would even consider the waiving of the instructional minutes. So, you know, going forward, we, you know, as an organization, we need to think about how do we want to prepare for these hurricanes. So one thing that we've decided is we will put out a survey during pre-planning every year around hurricanes, and because with the expectation that we may need several days. They seem to become more plentiful as, the years progress. We could talk about global warming, but, the reality is we've lost 11 school days, and the state is requiring us to make up those instructional minutes. And other districts are doing it differently based on different parameters. We know some districts like Lee County, they're adding days to their school day. Others gave up the early release. Some schools have, some districts only have 6 periods in secondary. It just changes the dynamic based on lots of different factors. But we double checked everything to make sure that we were agreeing to something that we have to in terms of instructional minutes. Again, this is making it's an awful situation. You guys have been very clear about that, and your engagement in this is unmatched in anything that we do. We've never done a survey other than when we do hurricane makeup days. That we don't get surveys where we get thousands of responses, but 84% saying to give up early release. That told us that that's what we could work with the district around. They get frustrated. They did not want us to put out a survey. They just want to talk and figure out what they want to do. But we had to talk to you guys first, knowing that your voice matters, and that's going to drive what we have to ask for. Again, making the best of a really bad situation, and I'm really sorry that we have to do that. I mean, in a perfect world, we shouldn't have to. So it's tough. Regina, I don't know if you had anything more to add on that.
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone for participating in our survey so that we could advocate for you the best that we could. I think that I'm happy more than ever that we are through this now, and now it is out and everybody can move on, move forward with our lives, continuing, helping our families and being there for our students. So I just want to thank everybody for that.
Thanks, Regina.
Sorry, I just answered your question.
Yeah, I guess the question that I see down there is like, if you have a question about doing additional minutes in elementary, that should be directed at the superintendent. And he brought up several different issues around it. It wasn't just the decree. It was around the transportation issues, the K-8 schools, the community, and the parent pressure that he's having as well. Again, we aligned what we got from you guys in terms of the survey. We parsed out those that took the survey more than once. We did everything we can to clean it up to make sure it was accurate. And remember, it only went to our members. And I hope that members out there didn't share it with non-members. We tried to parse out the non-members as well, but we have to put in every loss number, working on that. So we want to make sure that your voice is heard, and you guys are driving this decision. So this is what we got with, and I know that the faculty meetings that will be waived and the extra day of pay wasn't in the original communication, but you will hear about that. We have that, and that's a guarantee.
Yeah, I think we're planning first thing, this is all happened very quickly, and that's why we were so adamant about let's put a little bit of a break on this so that we can get this information to them so they could, again, hear what we're hearing and what is important to employees. But our plan is to what we're recording tonight, the survey information. I'm also working on a separate kind of summary document that really puts all of the Florida statutes in one place so that it's hopefully helpful to understand that, the split between the requirements for elementary and secondary, we understand that they're there in statute, but where the district runs into some issues is that all of these things must be true at one time. And that's a real challenge. The legislature does not look at it as like, okay, district, you have elementary that you planning time, you have secondary. I mean, the reality is the Florida legislature through their statutes and administrative codes don't care about planning time. They really do not. And I think we dove into this some with our FAQ that when it comes to looking at waiving time, the commissioner will not even consider a request unless it is proven that all of the available additional teacher planning time is used, and that any of those district holidays that we use or work days are used, that those all must be utilized first before they will even consider. So, this is probably on the soapbox of, what we deal with out of the policymakers and decision makers at the Tallahassee level. But this is, again, an example of what they don't care about when it comes to, folks making decisions about what we know as educators is best in the classroom. So,
Yeah, and I just want to add that I had a feisty conversation with the district about the importance of planning time. And I don't want anybody here to think that we don't find it to be important. As a matter of fact, I said great teachers don't just show up the day of school and start teaching without proper planning and getting what they need to do for their students. That's what makes a great teacher great, is having that time before and after lessons. And that's what you guys are losing in this. And I just needed Van and the cabinet to understand and that's why we're fighting for more, like getting rid of some of those faculty meetings. I'm like, those are not as important as the time that teachers have in their classrooms to get the stuff done. Much of the stuff, by the way, that you're force feeding them. And so I get pretty angry in those meetings, and that, you know, it's unfortunate that we're here. We have more planning time in our schedule than most districts, because we know that that's what you guys have wanted us to fight for over the years. This is one of those situations in a, you know, unfortunately in an emergency where we have to ultimately give that up or go to school on days that we normally wouldn't. So that's why we had to ask you what you wanted, and that's why we landed on where we're at. And it's again, making the best of a bad situation. And I think I think those are the only points I had on that.
okay.
All right.
Yeah, I just also want to say thank you for those of you that reached out with questions. You know, it's important. You know, I think a lot of the misunderstanding and misinformation that's out there is from assumptions, and you know, it helps direct us how we could, what information is most important to get out to folks. So
Yeah, and some of the questions that are coming in about Mondays, like there are no required Monday meetings any longer, right? So
Yeah.
that's just the bottom line. So if there was something scheduled on a Monday, you can go, but you don't have to go. That,
Yeah.
you know, I just want to be clear about that. So
And
go ahead.
I'm sorry. And what, like, I think there was a question about like what was agreed to prior still remains, right, for the rest of this semester as well. So,
Yep.
all right, let's move on.
Getting some questions of, yeah, and synergy, right? So we've been at you, and we know that you guys are dealing with this daily. Ultimately, what the superintendent says is that we have to hold down the fort on synergy this year. So what does that mean? That means that, like, we're going to have something new next year. They don't know what that is going to be. I know that there's talk of a lawsuit against synergy. None of that really matters to any of us in doing that work. So what we've been doing is advocating for those of you that are spending all of that additional time working within synergy, specifically around the needs of the students, right? And I'm talking to you ESC teachers and BE teachers out there that have had to make sure that kids are getting what they need. Again, what we've been able to do is make sure that you are documenting that. You're submitting that documentation in time to your administration, so that way you're being paid. And then if you're following those steps and they're not paying you, you know, for that, then that's when you're going to call us and we're going to help advocate for you. And if they're asking you to do things in synergy that you don't see the direct effect on what the students are doing or helping kids, then do not do it. Right now, it's going to be a dead item next year. Again, we don't know what the new system will be, but we just have to kind of weather the storm, so to speak. And that's a poor analogy and a poor expression for me to use in this meeting. But ultimately, I think he used the word hold on the fort for this year. He seems frustrated, as do the board members. So that's all we know on synergy at this time.
All right, so I know we've been seeing some action in the chat about millage and kind of some details there. So we've negotiated and proposed a detailed MOU to the superintendent and school board chief negotiator, that's Danielle Shotwell. We're going to review the MOUs that would be ratified after the millage passes November 5th. So let me switch screens here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to walk through, because I'm hoping that this will answer a lot of the questions that are out there, and this will also be included in a communication that goes out to show members what we've been working on and what our intent with the MOU is and the agreement on this.
Can you make it bigger, Brett?
Let's see.
There we
Is that
go.
better?
Yeah.
Let me make this a little wider for myself to read here. It's a lot of words, I know. So a lot of the introduction to this document talks about, the why behind this, the whereas, this is about providing excellent education to students, but on the employee side, the concern is about retention and recruitment by addressing compensation, right? This is what this is all about for employees, is adding supplemental pay. And this referendum is currently on the ballot, and upon being passed, that this would add additional revenue towards employee compensation, which would begin July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2029. That's 4 years. And also it was important for us to negotiate language that said that this agreement will not take the place of annual salary negotiations. And that's very clearly spelled out in this agreement as the intro and also later in the document. So these are the provisions that we want to see, right? We know that 92% of the total millage revenue would be used for supplemental pay, with and that 8% aspect going directly to other educational programs like the full day VPK, college and career readiness, athletics and PE, and extended learning. And we have an attachment here that kind of shows a little bit of the breakdown. Of that percentage identified for supplements, each HCTA instructional bargaining unit employee would receive no less than $6,000 as an additional supplement to their annual salary. Without going to the ESP agreement, this would be mirrored language, except that it would say the HCTA ESP bargaining unit employees shall receive no less than $3,000 as an additional supplement. This annual salary supplement would be paid during the following school years. Should it pass in November 5th, it would be paid in the 25-26 school year, the 26-27, the 27-28, and the 28-29 school year. This payment is a supplement to employee-based salary and shall be treated as salary. This is important because we get a lot of questions and misinformation out there about it being a bonus. It is not a bonus. It will be FRS eligible. And because it would be a bi-weekly supplement paid in a regularly scheduled paycheck, it would be taxed as at your rate. These regular payments would be clearly identified on the employee's pay stub. And we have an agreement. We understand that the district wants to, should this pass, actually have these start immediately in the July 1, 2025, even though they don't actually collect that pot of money until November 2025. But if for some reason those payments cannot begin on the employee's first paycheck of the contractual year, it would be retroactive to July 1 if there's something that comes up there. The next part of this agreement is that we were trying to work in some contingencies here. So if the distribution of funds, since the distribution of funds for the employee compensation is based on that total count of employees in relation to the amount of money that's collected, the parties agree that those funds should be equitably distributed based on that actual revenue during each tax year. So this is the contingency of if the total funds that are distributed to all employees ends up being less than what the total revenue is actually collected. That means if what we pay out is less than what the district actually ends up with in that tax year, that we would immediately return to negotiate the distribution of those extra funds. Well, likewise, if the total amount of funds collected is not enough to meet that agreed upon 6,000 or 3,000 for employees, the parties would agree to return to negotiate those remedies to meet that obligation, which would be through their fund balance or other sources of funding. Eligible employees must be, this is a typical agreement in our compensation language, that employees must be current full-time active employees who are newly hired or returning to employment. Those employees are returning from leave or are newly hired and begin work after the start of that contractual year. So let's say you are returning or you get hired in November, December, January, it would be at that prorated amount of that supplement. And then we agree to address concerns over eligibility. So if there's a question about something that comes up, then we would work together on those on a case-by-case basis. And then the agreement is that by May 1st of each year of this millage revenue being in place over the next 4 years, we will convene to review this agreement. So this is to say that if in the first year we there's some kind of challenge or something that we decide that needs to be addressed, that we would come together and adjust this agreement as needed. And then this agreement would become a part of the salary schedule supplement and become a part of our CTA contract, meaning that this is a contractual agreement that is enforceable, grievable, could be brought to arbitration, enforceable. It's not just a, for lack of a better term, a napkin agreement. This is contractual and enforceable. Some other contingencies that we were putting in is that this agreement would be valid once it's ratified by employees and approved by the school board, just like any other compensation agreement. And that millage projecting that at this point, projecting revenue of 177 million passes, right? It's got to pass, and then this would be in place. All compensation improvements provided through this millage referendum are non-recurring, meaning once that 4-year period ends in 2029, then it would have to be reestablished, voted on again. So that's where you get that question of, the guarantee. It would be guaranteed for the 4 years of this agreement, and then it would be put out to voters again. Also, the superintendent will establish that Citizens Oversight Committee to monitor and report on the revenue and expenditures for the millage referendum funds. I think Rob can speak more to that, but what our demand is that we have a seat on that committee, right? That we would be part of reviewing those documents. But we would always be requesting that information and that budget analysis in our regular negotiations as well. So again, here it is in the closing that the funds generated from the millage referendum are intended to supplement employee-based salaries and are not intended to diminish or supplant any other funds available to increase employee wages each year. So, if there's additional money in the FEFP or the money that comes in each year based on student enrollment or increases to the base student allocation, that this is not taking the place of that we still are negotiating base salary, step movement, all those improvements to the schedule as usual. This is truly a supplement. Again, that's FRS eligible, tax at your regular rate, bi-weekly. And then again, that we would meet no later than May 1st of each year to review and improve this agreement as needed. So that's kind of the quick and detailed, hopefully, review of the MOUs that have been proposed. And the district has these, the superintendent has these. And again, the language is mirrored in the ESP agreement. It just simply would say ESPs rather than instructional, with the only difference being the 6,000 versus 3,000.
Yeah, and our brother sister union at HCTA,
Yes.
They'll have a very similar agreement on this for their employees. Britt, somebody asked if we could put this up on our website. I don't think it's up there yet, but we could do that.
Yeah, it's not there yet. Again, there's been a lot of moving parts lately. So the plan is to get this draft shared. Again, it's not there yet. I mean, the millage has to pass, right? But this is the language that we want to have, that we would, agree upon and put it out for ratification, have it be part of the full collective bargaining agreement. But yes, we'll share it. And again, we're planning to put out communication in the morning with kind of the summary of the hurricane, the points that we made about the other parts of the agreement that were not included in the superintendent's communication, along with this MOU, so it can be shared and out there.
Yeah, and I just want to dovetail off of that Britt's done a great job of looking at the other MOUs across the state that have already been put into place and finding the greatest hits or the strongest language for what she just shared with you. So what this does is it protects all of you a couple of ways. One, it guarantees that you get the money or that 92% of those dollars. Two, we will have the oversight committee. I've convinced the oversight committee that works for the half-penny sales tax to serve as the oversight for this one as well. So there will be community oversight. Britt and I will also be part of that oversight because we'll be seeing the dollars and making sure that you're getting every single dollar that you deserve. It also protects us to come back every year because the expectation is that the amount could and should go up from where we start. And then if it doesn't, or if something catastrophic happens and it goes lower, then we would go back to the table, and our position would be that they would pay it out of that fund balance. So all of that is in that language of that MOU. So we want you to have the confidence that you can go out and tell your family and friends that you, in fact, will receive these dollars upon it passing on November 5th. I
Yeah.
think that's all I had on the MOU,
Yes,
but I think it's
yep,
great.
sorry.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, now getting into the rest of the millage updates.
On to our HCTA millage update. Guys, have a moment. If you haven't already, please go to www.voteyesforstudents.org. Check out the different ways to be involved and to keep up on the information as it is released. As we know, students need quality teachers and support professionals in front of them at all times. And so with this millage, that's what we're looking to achieve. Again, and as always, it's always about the students. This campaign, as you guys all know, is grassroots efforts. We have staff in our office, myself, and other community organizations helping us out with this millage campaign. We need every member in the union and outside of the union, every person inside of every school voting for this, as well as your neighbors and your community members too. Just keep in mind, with this millage, there are thousands of dollars for each of you at stake over the next 4 years. So if we do not do this, then we lose out on a lot. It's really important, again, not only for staff, support professionals, teachers, but as well our students and our community.
Thanks, Regina. Yeah,
You're
and
welcome.
I saw a couple questions. It's polling well. It's looking good, and I want you guys to be confident to go out there and talk about how this is going to affect your life and your school and your students. And again, there are thousands of kids out there right now that don't have a highly qualified teacher. I've been out on the roadshow in the community town halls, and I tell everybody that every kid in Hillsborough County deserves their favorite teacher. And then I even talk about that not only do we have the kids that don't have a classroom teacher in front of them, but the burden falls on all of you out there to kind of fill in the blank for the teachers and the support professionals that we don't have. Whether it's covering classes or having the highest class sizes that you've ever seen, that's how we're trying to fill in this pothole, or at least the district is. And we got to get rid of this pothole, and the millage referendum is the way that we're going to go about it. I do want to roll back for 1 second and just talk about Synergy. I saw there were a couple of questions out there. Now, Synergy, we know that specifically, and I'm talking to our great ESE and VE teachers that are meeting the special needs of students that need them. We know there's a lot of time, and like a lot more time is being spent importing and putting all that information into Synergy. So what we're saying is that when we want you to document how much extra time that you're doing for student A, B, and C, it took me this amount of time, and that's what you would submit to be able to get paid from the district. I don't know if there are other component jobs that are asked to do a lot more extra work. I know that there are some of our support services that kind of fall into this category. But so I think that's really what I'm talking about, meeting the needs of kids that have 504s or the different plans that they might need. So and I've spoken to many of you about how much time it's taking. So document that, go back and document that, hey, I already did it for these kids, and then submit that for payment. That's what we're asking you to do. So maybe I wasn't clear about that the last time. So that's what I just want to touch back on. And then let's go forward to the next slide. So we did mention that, we heard you that you guys are engaged in, oh, go ahead, Regina, you have something on that?
I'm sorry.
No,
I
I
saw a
appreciate you.
question saying where to get the format. You could definitely document it in a notebook that you have for yourself. You want to definitely do that, but I would recommend asking for the TPay form, or asking your principal secretary form. What is the form that you would need to turn into her so that you can eventually get paid for it? And just making sure that you make copies of it and keep them for yourself as well.
Thanks, Regina.
You're welcome.
And again, out there, yeah, you're awesome. Your principal secretary might say to you right away, I don't know about this. That's okay. Let them figure it like that. Don't let that stop you because there might be a couple of bumps in the road here, but we want to get you paid for the extra time that you're doing. And again, we don't know what the new platform will be next year, but we know they're looking at other things. And again, everybody, I think we had 53 or 5,200 responses to our survey about the hurricane. We put out several different polls about millage, and we've asked for help on that. We got about 30 people that are willing to help. So we have a disproportionate amount of help here. So we have a couple of different ways that you can still help. First of all, as Regina said, this is a grassroots effort, and each of you is that blade of grass. These campaigns typically cost between $500,000 and $1 million to run these campaigns. Okay, our Vote Yes for Students campaign is going to be done at approximately $100,000, mostly funded by your state and national unions, as well as the help of the Hillsborough Education Foundation. So we're doing it, what they would say on, pennies on the dollar, because it's grassroots. And we need each of you to not only vote for it, but talk about the effect it would have on our schools and students to get this to pass. We will have, we're working the top 6 early voting spots, and they're listed here. And we have a Sign Up Genius link for anybody that's willing to do a 2-hour, 2 hours of sign waving, and we have brochures and we have palm cards. We have things to give the public to let them know. There are so many people out there that still don't know that this is on the ballot. We are bottom of the ballot, but number 1 in our hearts because it's for kids. That's what we got to talk about. And we're not asking you to engage in the other side and people that don't want to vote for it. We get it. We know, and as I've been out to community town halls, we know it's not a good time to ask for a tax increase. And we hope that each of you put your home in so you can see the difference between what you'd pay as opposed to what you're going to get. Because we believe it's a no-brainer for every one of our members to do this. But we're finding even out there that community members that are not part of our field, they are also looking at it the same way. They didn't realize how little they could be to have that investment in our schools and our students and our teachers and our support professionals. So we're asking you to have that conversation out there. And if you're willing to kind of sign wave and help us do a shift over at one of these 6 spots, just email us and we'll send you the sign up link and get you there for just a couple hours of sign waving. And then we have a couple of like bigger events. If you want to slide to the next slide there, Brett.
Yeah.
That we have, like, we're going to invite the media this Friday to the Jan Platt Library between 4:30 and 5:30. So if you're getting out of school and maybe you even want to come down there and vote early, these are early voting sites. Remember, for early voting sites, you don't have to go to your precinct. You can go to any of these. Okay. And they're becoming increasingly popular among voters, which is a good thing. So this Friday, we're going to have sign waving from 4:30 to 5:30 at the Jan Platt Library. So come on down, join me, join some of the school board members that are supportive and other people. I know Regina will be there with me and we'll be waving signs. And then next Friday, we're going to do it on the other side of town over at the Bloomingdale Library, 4:30 to 5:30. These are 2 of the most popular early voting spots. And again, we need your help. We need to help each other. This is going to put thousands of dollars in each of our pockets for 4 years. And we're feeling good about it, but we need your help now. So thank you all for everything that you're doing out there. This is what the next big thing.
Right. And then just kind of as a final reminder, because this is still, things that come up to us that, the representation as far as, if there's an allegation or representation you may need in your kind of day-to-day work, that this is a benefit only to members, and that's protected in the state constitution. So we protect members, the contract, and our public schools. So if someone is at your site who's not an HCTA member in good standing, we can't offer that legal protection. It's like a pre-existing condition kind of with insurance in a way, because the reality is that the legal protection, when you need an attorney for something or you need representation for that employment matter, it essentially is. It is an insurance policy to an extent. And so pre-existing issues, when you're not a dues paying member, we're unable to represent folks that come in after the fact. So make sure you talk to potential members at your site about the importance of these services, and what we have available. So I think that may be it.
Yeah, a couple people are asking me like, what do I do about getting signs and things like that? So if you do sign up to do a shift, then we ask you to just swing by here or call us and we'll get you that what you need. We're gonna have like a supply station here at a building, which would have signs, stickers. We have parasol umbrellas for people that are sign waving. We have snacks that you can grab a snack bag so you have things that you need. So if you can't make it to our building before your shift, then contact one of us and we'll get you that what you need. I know that some of you work in that south end of the district. I was all over the place putting those signs out all weekend. This is literally, it's taking a lot of work, but it's going to pay off for us big time. And again, we just need your help. And I see a lot of people asking questions about Synergy. We will put out some more information about what you should do to document that. Because I see that we're getting a lot of questions around that. And I know that you guys are doing that hard work already for those students. So we'll get you some more meat on those bones for that actual getting that documentation done. We'll get that to you real soon.
All right.
So yeah, we're getting done here a little bit early. We appreciate all of you. We understand and your grace and patience with everything going on. It's a crazy time of the year and a crazy time to be a teacher in a crazy state. And I'll say something that it frustrates me all the time, not only from the classroom but from this position, that our field and what we do for our communities is respected by the communities, but the lawmakers treat us like we're a doormat. And whether it comes to instructional minutes or being paid 50th in the nation, I mean, when people say to you, well, they should be able to pay teachers more on a $4 billion budget, remind them that there are 260 schools and that most of those dollars come in categoricals, and meaning that they have to spend X amount of money on security and X amount of money on buses and transportation and X amount of money on buildings. And when it comes down to it, we negotiate from the pot of money that's available for teachers. And that money is always going to lead us to the fact that you guys are paid 50th in the nation in Florida. And that's unfair and that's not right. And you deserve more, as well as the students of Florida. And collectively, that's what we have to fight for. There are different things that we could talk about with hurricane days. And we're going to talk more about that in August, because there are options of things that we could talk about legislatively, whether that is moving the school year earlier, giving more less minutes, more time in the calendar. There are other alternatives that we could fight for legislatively, but right now we are saddled with the inability to do much more than having to make up the minutes that the state has put forth for us. Now, here's a challenge I have for all of you. For every conversation that you've had around hurricane minutes, for every phone call that you've had, for every water cooler talk or social media post, I ask that you go out and have a social media post and a water cooler talk and a conversation around millage and what it's going to mean to our district and our community. And by the way, the number one thing that polling information shows that, hey, this money is raised locally and spent locally, and it's a boon for the local economy. We're the biggest employer in the district. When that money flows to you guys have more money to spend in the same community. So that resonates with people. We need your help more than ever before on this. So please get out there, talk to your family and friends, get on your social media, getting those water cooler talks, talk to the potential members at your site. You don't have to talk to them about joining CTA, talking to them about how they benefit also from this millage. It can't just be us carrying this water on this one. We need their help now as well, because everybody will benefit in this district when we get this to pass. So thank you again for your time tonight. This is just an informational meeting. We know that your time is valuable. We know that's super, super important, but we'll get back to our rep councils and we'll have some other meetings coming up real soon, but stay safe. Thank you for everything that you're doing out there, and let's get out and vote yes for students now and through November 5th. We really need your help. Thank you so much.
All right. I think Pam's just finishing up an answer on there we go.
All good.
All right.
Yes.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.